No, I'm going to keep it. All right. So the truth is it's a little bit of a hemshech, but you'll see what I mean. So it says in Pasuk Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan Eidas Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe, that this is the accounting of the Mishkan of testimony that has the Aron Habris that Moshe Rabbeinu took the accounting of, right? So then the pasuk goes on to talk about the calculations. In other words, all the shkalim counted up, all the gold, all the silver, and so on. Okay, but Rashi already comments on the double lashon of the pasuk again. Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan Heidas. This is the accounting of the Mishkan. What is the Mishkan? The Mishkan of testimony. It says the word Mishkan twice. So Rashi says like this: Shnei Pa'amim. It says it twice. Remez LeMikdash. This is a hint to the two Beis HaMikdash. Shenis mashkein b'shnei churbanan al v'naseim shel Yisrael. That was taken as a mashkin kilo, like a mashkin is what's the word mashkin? Collateral. Yeah, it was taken as collateral by the Rebbeinu Shloim because of our averos. In other words, so the two words mishkan over here is a hint to the Beis HaMikdash. And why is the Beis HaMikdash being called hinted to with the word mishkan? Because the word mishkan comes to the word mashkin also. Mashkin means a collateral. Exactly, collateral that was taken. And the Rebbeinu Shalom took away the Batei Mikdash because of our averos. Okay, a number of questions, but really let's focus just on one, I guess. Right? Let's keep it simple. Fine. For whatever reason, Chazal understand that the word Mishkan over here is twice is a remes to the Beis HaMikdash. But why? Okay, fine. Once I have that tradition, then I would say, okay, and it's simply a hint to the fact that we're going to have two Beis HaMikdashes later. Why is the Beis HaMikdash being hinted to with the word Mishkan? So the Gemara in Eruvin tells us that we find Mishkan, Ikri Mikdash, Mikdash, Ikri Mishkan. Sometimes in Tanakh, the word Mishkan and Mikdash are interchangeable. When the pasuk, when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to build the Mishkan, the pasuk he said that the word Hashem uses is Asuli Mikdash. So already you see that the word Mishkan and Mikdash is kind of interchangeable. So all I have to say is that it says Mishkan twice. That's a remes to the two Beis HaMikdashes that we'll have. But Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi goes further. Rashi says, and it's not just into the two Beis HaMikdashes. It's a hint to the destructions of the two Beis HaMikdashes. Because over here, the word Mishkan is not a hint to just the Beis HaMikdash. It's a hint to Hashem taking away the Beis HaMikdash. So the word Mishkan over here is connected with the word Mashkan, that Hashem is taking away the Mishkan, like a person taking from a person that he lends money to. He's taking the Mashkan from the person. So why is that? Why would the pasuk hint with the word Mishkan, not to the Beis HaMikdash, but to the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash? And second of all, why is destruction? In what way is the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash being described as a mashkin? Like I'm taking something away in order to make sure that you don't skip town. You know what? Hashem destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, destroyed it, finished. What does that mean? That Hashem took it away from us in a way of a mashkin? Okay, so we have two things. You have a Mishkan and you have a Beis HaMikdash.
It seems backwards. No, a mashkin is something that the borrower gives to the lender. Beis HaMikdash, maybe we think was given to the borrowers, us, by Hashem.
Right. It's a little bit backwards also. Right. It's true also. Right. So it's like this. There's a var from the Rogatchover. It's a Gvaldige Torah. He mentioned this in a few places in his writings. This you cite. The Rogatchover asks the following stira. There's two kashas that the Rogatchover asks between Mishkan and Mikdash. Number one, in the Gemara, the Gemara tells us, it's Gemara in Chulin, the Gemara makes a whole cheshbon to prove how Betzalel, who was the head of the manufacturing of the Mishkan, the Gemara makes a calculation to prove that he was 13 years old. He was not a Kaddish, he was already bar mitzvah. He was mamish 13. Now the Rogatchover, and I mentioned the Brisker Rav also makes the same point, that the reason why the Gemara makes such a calculation, goes out of its way to prove that, even though I don't know how old anyone else was in the Midbar, but Tzal we have to show is 13 year old. Said the Brisker Rav and the Rogatchover, you see from there, that the only ones allowed to build the Mishkan, you had to be a Gadol. You couldn't be a Kaddish to build the Mishkan. You had to be an Ish, you had to be a Gadol. Okay, the problem is that the Gemara in Megillah and the Gemara in Shabbos, describing the Beis HaMikdash, seems to say not like that. The Gemara says that Ein mevatlan Tanai Kishabeis Rabban afilu lebinyan Beis HaMikdash. That if kids are learning in Cheder and Yeshiva, we don't, and we need extra hands to build the Beis HaMikdash, we don't stop kids learning in Yeshiva. We let them learn, and even if it means that the Beis HaMikdash will be delayed, it's kedai. Okay, why? Because their learning is so chashuv. But it sounds like, let's say they're in recess anyway. or it's during the summer, or whatever, or kids that are not in cheder, then they should come and help in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So on the one end, you're telling me Betzalel for the Mishkan has to be bar mitzvah, and if it's under bar mitzvah, he can't participate. But yet, when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, the only reason why we don't have kids participate is because we don't want to stop them from learning. But if it wasn't for that concern, we would have them work to build the Beis Hamikdash. So that's a steer, number one. Another steer the Rogatchover points out is like this. The Gemara tells us, the Rambam passes like this also in Hilchos Beis Havachira, about the Beis Hamikdash, that the binyan of the Beis Hamikdash is not Deicha Shabbos. It's not Deicha Shabbos. You build the Beis Hamikdash in the 6 days of the week, but on Shabbos, it's not Deicha Shabbos. Asks the Rogatchover, there's a Gemara in Moed Katan. The Gemara says in Moed Katan that the Chanukas HaMishkan, when the Mishkan was built, then they had certain sacrifices brought to plug in the Mishkan. That it should be dedicated and should really take effect as a Mishkan. The Gemara says in Moed Katan, those karbanos, even though it involves Chil Shabbos, bringing a carbon, it was brought on Shabbos too. Chanukas HaMishkan is Deicha Shabbos. So says the Rogatchover, I don't get it. Building the Beis Hamikdash is not Deicha Shabbos, but the karbanos necessary to dedicate the Mishkan is Deicha Shabbos. So these are the two contradictions. When it comes to the Mishkan, says the Rogatchover, number one, we see Ketanim not allowed. And number two, we find that building the Mishkan is Deicha Shabbos. Beis Hamikdash, opposite of both. The Beis Hamikdash, Ketanim are allowed, just we don't want to stop them from learning, but if it wasn't for that concern, Ketanim would be allowed to participate in the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and building the Beis Hamikdash is not Deicha Shabbos. How do we figure this out? So says the Rogatchover, this is the aside. The aside is as follows. There's a fundamental difference between the mitzvah of building Mishkan versus the mitzvah of building Beis Hamikdash. The mitzvah of building the Mishkan was to actually build the Mishkan. Every single second, every single brick, well, it wasn't bricks, every single beam, every single piece of wood, every single curtain, every single piece of the Mishkan, the mitzvah was to actually build it. Every single curtain that was laid, every single beam that was established, the person can make a bracha, Asher Kishim Zvanu, live nice as HaMishkan, or whatever. Every single thing is a mitzvah. And because of that, said the Rogatchover, since the actual building and every single step in the building process is a ma'aseh mitzvah, it's an active mitzvah, so therefore it has to be done l'shma. It has to be done l'shma. Like every mitzvah, we talk about making tzitzis, or whenever you're doing something, it has to be done l'shem mitzvah. Ketanim don't have the ability to have l'shma, so Ketanim are not allowed to build a Mishkan. On the flip side, because building the Mishkan is itself a mitzvah, so that's a mitzvah which is Deicha Shabbos. Because it's so chashuv, it's Deicha Shabbos. But says the Rogatchover, not so when it comes to Beis Hamikdash. When it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, there is no mitzvah to build the Beis Hamikdash. There's a mitzvah to make sure a Beis Hamikdash is built. It's similar to, let's say, on Sukkot. There's no mitzvah to build a sukkah. You need a sukkah on Sukkot. So you better make sure you have one on Sukkot. But when you're building a sukkah before Sukkot, that's not a mitzvah. There's no bracha that you make on building a sukkah. Because the point is just to make sure you have a sukkah. Said the Rogatchover, when it comes to the Mishkan, the mitzvah was mamish building. You are creating the Mishkan. You are creating the Mishkan, and that's what you have to do. You are creating the Mishkan, you have to have das, therefore you have to be a gadol, and it's so chashuv, the act of building is so chashuv, it's Deicha Shabbos. But when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, the building of the Beis Hamikdash is just a hechsher mitzvah. It's not the mitzvah itself. You're just doing something in order to make sure that, boom, at the end of the day, the Beis Hamikdash is there. That's the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to make sure that Beis Hamikdash is there. So because of that, says the Rogatchover, even Ketanim can participate, because you don't need das. The point is, the Beis Hamikdash is there. Is it there? It's there. Even Goyim, the Rogatchover suggests, maybe Goyim can build it too. Because there doesn't have to be any das. A Kaddish can build a sukkah. You don't need das for that. And on the flip side, because the act of building is not the mitzvah, it's just the hechsher mitzvah, it's just facilitating the fact that at the end of the day there is a Beis Hamikdash standing at the end, then the act of building is not chashuv enough as a mitzvah to be Deicha Shabbos. That's the flip side. So the Mishkan is the building is the ma'aseh mitzvah. You are the ones building the Mishkan. The Mishkan is mamash yours. You're building it. So you need to be a gadol, and the act of building is the mitzvah, it's Deicha Shabbos. But the Beis Hamikdash is a flip side. The mitzvah is not to build the Beis Hamikdash. The mitzvah is to make sure the Beis Hamikdash is there. Obviously, you have to build in order to make sure it's there. But the mitzvah is when it's done. How did it get there? It makes no difference. Maybe it came from heaven. Who cares? It's nothing with you. You have to make sure it's there. And therefore, Katana could participate in it. That doesn't matter to me. Let's say it floats down from heaven. It's good enough. If Katana build it, it's also fine. And it's not Doicha Shabbos because the act of building is not the mitzvah. That's the Yisad of the Rav. Yeah, you were going to say something? Yeah, okay. So, okay, that's the halacha. How do we explain this? What does this tell us about Mishkan versus Mikdash? So Tzaddik writes in Resisei Laila the following Yisad. He says, when we think of Mishkan versus the Beis HaMikdash, we think of them as basically the same. They're both temples where Karbanos were done. Happens to be, one was permanent, that's the Beis HaMikdash, and one is not permanent, that's the Mishkan. One was built by Moshe, and one was built by Shlomo HaMelech. But it's basically the same idea. Says Rav Tzaddik, no. Take a look at the words. What does the word Mishkan mean? The word Mishkan comes from the word Shechina, or Shochen, which means to reside. The word Shechina, the word Mishkan means that the level of godliness that the Jewish people experienced through the Mishkan was a level of godliness that was understandable, that was manageable, it was relatable. It was Vavke, like I was talking about before with Brisk, Vavke. That's called Mishkan, that's called Shechina. It's a God that resides amongst you. Shaychen itam b'toich tumasam. That's the Mishkan. Mikdash is different. What does the word Mikdash mean? The word Mikdash comes from the word Kodesh, right? What does Kodesh mean? What does holy mean? Kodesh means muvdal, mufar, something separate, something unknown, something off limits. I don't touch it, I can't touch it because it's holy, right? Mishkan means very touchable, very relatable. That's why in the Mishkan, Nadav and Avihu, connecting to the light of the Mishkan, they got too comfortable, right? They go in drunk, with wine, bringing karbanos without asking Moshe Rabbeinu. They're too comfortable with the Mishkan. No one's ever going to do that with the Beis HaMikdash. With the Beis HaMikdash, if the Mishkan means connecting to the side of God that's relatable to you, that makes sense to you, the Beis HaMikdash means connecting to a side of God that you have no hasag in it, that you have no idea, you have no contemplation of it all. There are some times when you go to a tzaddik, there's two different types of tzaddikim, you know? Sometimes you can have a rebbe or a tzaddik who you love him and your relationship is in such a way where you go to him because of his relatability. He's so relatable, he gets you, he makes the movie references, you know what I'm saying? Like he gets it, he's so relatable and I grow from the relatability. And then there is a different type of tzaddik, right? Then there's a type of tzaddik you go to completely unrelatable and that's why you go there. Just to experience something that's way beyond your conception. That's called Yudke, that's called Beis HaMikdash. The pasuk describes the Jewish people going to the Beis HaMikdash. Why do you visit the Beis HaMikdash? In order to experience the Yiras Hashem. What does Yiras Hashem mean? Yiras Hashem means to be in the presence of that side of God that's bigger than you. A side of God that you can't fully compute. That's Mishkan versus Beis HaMikdash. Okay. Now, what happens when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed? What is happening in Galus right now? And this will connect us to Perm a little bit. We'll see if you have time to do that. But right now we think of ourselves, okay, we don't have Mishkan. A long time we don't have a Mishkan. We don't have Beis HaMikdash either. So now we don't have anything. That's not really true. You know, there's Rav Hutner used to give the following mashal to what is happening in Galus. Well, what's going on in Galus? He said the following mashal. He said, let's say you have a room that's a little bit dark, right? There's a light switch, but for some reason no one's turning it on. It doesn't work right now, whatever. And there's a person in this room that I need to be able to figure out who this person is. So there are two people in the room that need to figure out who this third person is. One person has a match. So he lights the match, and you know it's not as light as turning on the light switch in the room, but it's something. So he uses that light in order to see a little bit vaguely who that person is, and with that he's able to figure out who the person is. The other person doesn't have a match. So you know what he does? He lets the person talk. And by listening carefully to the voice of the person, he's able to deduce with the voice who that person is. And then, said Rav Hutner, someone comes into the room, turns the lights on. So now, the person that used the match to figure out who that guy is, now his match is completely useless. It's completely useless. Because now the lights are on. What do you need a match for when the lights are on? But the other guy, that during the time of darkness, decided, you know what, the lights are off now, and I don't have a way of using my eyesight to learn this person. I am now going to tap into a different faculty that I have, which is called hearing. Now he developed during that time of darkness his ability to hear this guy's voice. And now the lights goes on, now he knows the person not just with seeing, because the lights are on, now he knows his voice too. He knows the person even more. Said Rav Hudner, that's the mashal of Galus. See, Galus means the lights are off. Galus means the Rebbeinu Shalom is hiding himself. Galus means is that there's no sign of God's presence. So now the Jewish people have one of two choices. Either you could just like desperately hold on to any little match, or you could begin to develop within yourself a sense of hearing, to be able to develop within yourself an ability to pick up on God's presence, which in a way that otherwise is undetectable. And then when the lights go on, when Mashiach comes, you have developed within yourself an ability to experience and to understand and to see God in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to have without that time of Galus. What's happening during Galus is the Jewish people are honing our skills to be able to know the unknown. When God is completely hidden during Galus and we're still saying Maida'ani, right, and we're still davening, we still do mitzvahs, we're developing within ourselves the skills to be able to hear Hashem when you don't see Him, to be able to hold on to God when He's completely hidden. And so what happens then is when Mashiach comes and the Beis Hamikdash returns, and what does Beis Hamikdash mean? Beis Hamikdash means God's unknowable, completely profound presence. But all of a sudden, during the years of Galus, we honed our skills to be able to find the unknowable God. So now when God reveals Himself in the most profound, unknowable way, we already know how to handle that. We have the skills to be, we were able to learn to figure out what God's thinking without Him having to say it. So now, all of a sudden, our ability to discern and to connect and to really relate to God is much deeper now through Galus than if it was we had the Beis Hamikdash. In other words, without Galus, there are these two options. Either I have God as the Mishkan, which is very knowable and down to earth, or I have the God of the Beis Hamikdash, which is completely beyond my conception. But with Galus, I have developed within myself the skills to be able to see things that I couldn't otherwise see, to hear things that I otherwise couldn't hear. And so now when the Beis Hamikdash returns, I am now able to use those skills that I learned in Galus to be able to experience a Mishkan in the Beis Hamikdash, to be able to actually feel and feel relatable to that God that's revealing Himself in the Beis Hamikdash way. Because I've always, throughout the whole years of Galus, I've been growing accustomed, I've been developing the skills of relating to a being that I don't see. I've always, that's what we all try to do. Every single time we daven, this is the big difficulty in davening, is that I keep on talking but no one's answering back. Right? So what do you have to work on with davening? You have to be able to work on this ability to be able to develop the skills of relating to a being that you can't see, to relating to a being that you don't understand. And that's a huge skill that is going to come in it's going to come in real handy when Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt. Because when the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, now the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to be revealing Himself, but He's going to be revealing Himself to such a deep degree that it's going to be, I don't know who this God is. But Baruch Hashem, I've been developing those skills over Galus to be able to relate to a God that I don't understand. And now, but until now in Galus, it's been a God that I don't understand because He seems to be not there. But now with the Beis Hamikdash, it's a God that I don't understand because He's pulling back all the curtains. But I've honed my skills to be able to relate to what I don't understand. That's what Purim is, right? Purim is a day that we celebrate our ability to accept and to have a connection to what we don't understand. Ad lo yada. That's why Purim is a yontif, which is celebrated in Galus. It's all Galus. It begins in Persia, it ends in Persia. Because that's what we gain in Galus, the benefit that the Jewish people, the skills that we develop in Galus, which is to relate to what we don't understand is exactly going to give us the ability to then, when the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, to be able to not just be in awe of the Beis Hamikdash, but to be able to be in awe of the Beis Hamikdash and at the same time be in love with the Beis Hamikdash, to feel completely at home in the Beis Hamikdash, which we don't understand. Because that's the God that we've been working on developing right now, is to feel comfortable and at home with the Rabbanu Shalom that we don't see. So then when the Rabbanu Shalom comes into our lives with Gula, with the third Beis Hamikdash, in a way that's overwhelmingly great, well, we've already developed those skills of being able to connect to what we don't understand. And now that the Rabbanu Shalom is mamish in front of our faces, kiviyachol, but in a way that's overwhelmingly profound, well, we're comfortable with that already. We know those skills. Therefore, dafka over here, the Beis Hamikdash, again, this is the idea. The Mishkan, the two words Mishkan, are referencing the Beis Hamikdash when it's being destroyed. Because the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Galus that we're in without a Beis Hamikdash, that's when we're developing our skills to find the Mishkan in the third Beis Hamikdash. Our ability to, when the third Beis Hamikdash comes, our ability to find the Mishkan in there, to have a sense of calm and peace and understanding and relatability to that which is completely beyond our ability to comprehend, has been something that's been, which means to find the Mishkan in the Beis Hamikdash, that's something that we've been developing dafka over the years of Galus, where we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. So this is the meaning, what's going on over in the pasuk, that the two words Mishkan is hinting to the tekufa, to the time period where we're honing in our skills to be able to relate to a Beis Hamikdash in a Mishkandik way. And the time period that we're honing our skills to have that is dafka during the times of Churban Beis Hamikdash. And that's why the Beis Hamikdash's destruction is being described with the word Mishkan or Mashkan. Hashem is taking the Beis Hamikdash away. Why? Not so that we don't have anything left, to give us the opportunity to hone our skills to be able to get it. And then when it comes back to us, we now know it much more, and we know it much deeper. When the lights go on, not only do I know what this guy looks like, but I know what this guy sounds like too. I now have more ways of relating to that person. That's what Galus does. Galus forces us to find more ways to relate to a God that we don't see. And then when the lights go back on with the Beis Hamikdash, we still hold on to those skills. And when the Beis Hamikdash comes back and God is now mamish profound, and our ancestors would have no way of relating to such a God, well, we know how to do that. Because we've been davening all these years. We've been mechazik, we've been strengthening our faith all these years. And so we're very comfortable with having a relationship with an entity that we don't understand. And that's exactly what's going to become the most profound experience when Gula comes, when the Beis Hamikdash is then going to be able to be experienced as if it's a Mishkan. And that's what it means. The Mishkan twice in this pasuk is hinting to our ability to experience the Beis Hamikdash as a Mishkan. And when are we honing in our skills to have that experience? Dafka when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. And that's what's going on in this pasuk. And that's the celebration of Purim. The Yontiv of Purim is a celebration of what? It's a celebration of the skills that we develop dafka in Galus. Because the lights are off and we have no other choice, we have to develop within ourselves our ability to find a God that's not seen. And that's not only what we have to do now, but when the lights go back on, that's gonna come in. It's gonna take our relationship with that God to a whole new level. Because now not only do we know what he looks like, but we're able to hear what he sounds like. We'll be able to have a much deeper, profound relationship with him. Because we've developed those skills of, again, knowing what we can't understand, of relating to what we can't understand. And when the Beis Hamikdash is revealed, it's going to take it all to a whole new level. And that's the side of what's going on over here. The Beis Hamikdash, ultimately, the Bayis HaShlishi, is going to be the union of Mishkan and Mikdash. The Beis Hamikdash Rishon, the first Beis Hamikdash, whose foundation was laid by David HaMelech, the Mishkan that was built by Moshe Rabbeinu, Mashiach Tzidkenu is the neshama of Mashiach Tzidkenu, is the neshama of Moshe and David. Misha Yehushia, the one that took us out of Mitzrayim, the pasuk says, is going to be the one to take us out of the final goals. So Mashiach is Moshe. And yet by Yeshana Rabbah we say, Ish Tzemach Shemai Hu David Ba'atzma, that Mashiach is David HaMelech. Mashiach is a combination of David and Moshe. Moshe is the Mishkan, David is the Beis Hamikdash. The Mashiach means a combination of the two. God is now revealing himself in all of his glory, in his unknowable glory. But after Galus, we now have the ability to relate to such a God. That's the unification of Migdash and Mishkan, of David and Moshe. No, we should be zeicha that as Galus, as we're completing the last few little days of Galus, we should be zeicha that all of our skills and all of our amun and our bitachon and our davening, everything that we have, and all the weapons that the Jewish people have been developing in terms of being able to find an invisible God, we should be zeicha to use those skills, not to find an invisible God, but to be able to connect to an unbelievably overwhelming, brilliant light of that God. Because those same skills, that's what we're going to need when that light goes really way on. We're going to have to also be able to relate to the unknown. That's what Purim is. We should be zeicha to see that with our own eyes. Mamish. Ayin by Yir b'Shuv Hashem. Let's see and be as called tzedek and meir v'meinu. Amen. That's what I'm about to say, but like the pneumius of why Bashkach Pratis they're more mak. If you think about it, what happens is they're being makel on an assay, right? They're not wearing talis katan and tzitzis because they're being machmer on a loisa, not a loisa say, but on a bittel, right? On a loisa say, carrying on Shabbos, right?
Yeah, but
so they're being more
this
machmer.
is only if you have Arbor Conference.
Oh, maskim, yeah. No, they're not undoing a mitzvah. But I'm saying, but there's a kul that they're doing mitzvah asay. They're choosing not to do a mitzvah asay because of the extra concern they have to violate a loisa asay, which means that what they're
also an assay of keeping Shabbos.
and
By not violating the license, say that
right,
doing that.
but Baker it's a loisa say. That's not so pashut whether there's a say in not doing malach. The pashut is a loisa say. So that's what, so let me. So the Oimik is like this. The Rizal said that loisa, if you compare loisa say to assays, all Torah mitzvahs comes together to complete Hashem's name. Who is Hashem? Yud Kei Vav Kei. And Torah mitzvahs, that's the way how Hashem reveals Himself. So all Torah mitzvahs is going to be broken down in terms of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the Rizal said that all mitzvahs asay are Vav Kei. Okay? And all mitzvahs loisa say are in truth higher, it's Yud Kei. Yeah, no, it's a big side. Every time you do a mitzvah say, part of the kavana by the mekubalim is to think to connect yourself to the letters Vav Kei, and a loisa say when you don't do an avera, it's to makash yourself to the letters Yud Kei. Now Yud Kei is higher than Vav Kei. Yud Kei always means the part of Hashem that's unknown. That's why it's a loisa say. In other words, every time a person doesn't do an avera, the Rebbeinu Shalom, there's an unbelievable shefa that's coming into your life. The Rebbeinu Shalom is coming into your life, but the side of God that's coming into your life is the unknown side of God. It's the part of God that's above, beyond understanding. So all you can do is just receive it. So it's not with an action; it's with an inaction. Assays, that's connecting to the side of God that's already knowable and understandable, and that's something that you can actually do. What the briskers are being magal in this inyan is the chashivas of lois asay over asay. In other words, what they're doing is they're being magal of this inyan, that there's a side of the Rebbeinu Shalom which is much deeper and much more profound than anything you could be masig, that you could understand. Right. And this is that's a big shah. The Ramban talks about that. Even though lois says are higher, afal pikin says lois say. We can talk about that in a moment. Let me just get to the point. And this is all the side of brisk, because what's brisk? Everyone knows brisk is about dinam, right? Brisk doesn't care. They don't want to know why you do a mitzvah. They want to know that you're not supposed to ask why. The question is only what, right? You hear the pneumius of that is because even mitzvahs that make sense, it's not brisk is trying to find the side of the mitzvah, right? It's trying to find the loisa say of the mitzvah, the part of the mitzvah that doesn't make sense in the seich of the person, and the only relationship we can have with them is a kacha. That's the din. That's the din. So when we think of brisk, it's like, oh, it's din, 2 dinim, 3 dinim, it's all dinim. That's a gilui of the side of Torah which is above understanding. And the only way we can relate to it is, that's the din. Kacha, gzeres hakasav, it's all dinim. You never ask what, you never ask why. Why is asay, why is vavke. That's understandable, it's relatable, it's the side of God that makes sense to you. But din, what? That's loisa say, that's yudke, that's unknowable, and all we have to do is just accept it as a din. So the whole inyan of brisk is to makash themselves to that light of what's beyond understanding, and that's why. So l'shitasim and so they're machmar and loisa say over assays, but zafka by tzitzis also.
They sit down and learn kutchum all day.
What do you think? That's good for the point. Kodshim,
There's no
Kodshim, the
How
whole
is that
Indian,
din?
no, because the whole Indian of Kodshim,
Why?
is complete Mesiras Nefesh and Hisbatlos. The greatest bittul that a person can do is ad lo yada, is to say that I don't understand anything. That's the greatest power you have is not your ability to walk. The greatest power that you have is your ability to understand. That's the seichel. If you could let go of that, that's the biggest Mesiras Nefesh. Brisk is so bound to Kodshim because the Indian of Kodshim is complete as Batlus. The Indian of Kodshim is complete, I don't know anything, it's all the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's Mesiras Nefesh. I'm taking what I have, what I'm in control of, my behemoth, v'chulu, I'm giving it over to God. They do that with their seichel by turning all of Torah into just dinim.
But it has no practical application to Din Halacha now. It's all Kodshim.
That's the point. The point is it's also connected with the light of Geula. Brisk is always very much makusha to the Rambam. So Rambam, right? Rambam. Rambam is the light of Mashiach ben David. Rambam was the nitzitz of Mashiach ben David. That's why his Indian is to gather together all the halachas of Torah Sheba'al Peh into one place, just like the ingathering of the Jewish people with Mashiach. This idea of seeing everything in Torah, not ignoring, getting beyond the part that makes sense, the part that's manageable, the Vavke, and connecting to the Yudke, that's the light of Geula. The Arizal says in his commentary to Sefer Yechezkel that Lasid Lavai, the name Yudke Vavke, will be turned into Yudke Yudke. It says in Pasuk V'haya b'yamehu yiyah Hashem echad u'shmo echad, which means that the secret of Geula is that what the part of Yiddishkeit, the part of Torah that is constricted, that fits into our little box, which is Vavke, the light of Geula is everything becomes Yudke, everything becomes mamish, above and beyond understanding, everything turns into dinim, will become briskers, right? So so brisk is connected to Kodshim, which is all Mashiach. It's connected to the Rambam, which is all Mashiach, and they're more machshav as lois essays than essays. They'll be lenient on bimakayim mitzvah in order to make sure they don't chas v'shalom violate. Aloisa say Dafka of Shabbos, by the way, Yom Shekula Shabbos is the light of Gula also. They're extra makbid with the Shabbos thing that way. And it's Dafka Tzitzis, because the whole meaning of Tzitzis is Dafka a mitzvah, which built into the mitzvah is a sense of wanting Mashiach, of wanting Gula. Because it's the one mitzvah that we have which we cannot fulfill complete until there's a clarity on Tchelas, which is connected with the coming of Mashiach. Even though that, some people believe they have Tchelas already, but everyone knows that part of the motivation to find Tchelas, let's say by the Red Ziner, was in order to get the ball rolling to Mashiach. The Zohar says that Tchelas will be revealed before Mashiach comes. So, in other words, Tzitzis is a mitzvah. The fact that we have only white strings now and not blue strings, built into the mitzvah is there's something missing in the Yiddishkeit of Galus. There's something missing in the Yiddishkeit of Vavke. We have to find the Yud-K behind it. So Dafki and Tzitzis, that's where briskers are gonna reveal this nakuda of the mile of lois essays over essays. Like I said, none of that, they wouldn't agree to anything I just said, but that's the previous.
Right? It's not putting an essay. It's not putting a lois essay before an essay. It's still really not putting a lois essay before an essay.
It's showing that I would rather err on the side of caution to avoid a lois essay than be I evade the possibility of becoming an essay right now, right? Put on tzitzis, right?
Yeah.
But I'm willing to sacrifice that sure deal because of maybe possibly at some point I'm gonna violate a essay of Shabbos, right? That's what they're doing.
I mean, yeah, but it's the same thing if you're stuck in traffic here of Shabbos, right? Or Erev Pesach, make a better example.
Yeah.
You have to pull off to the side of the road and stay there for 2 days. There's definitely a mitzvah to say of eating matzah.
No.
Right? So you don't have matzah with you. You don't continue driving. Hopefully I'll make it before Shabbos.
Right.
Pull over.
But here it's an extreme case because there's no reason to think right now that the tzitzis are going to break. It's not like you're in a matzav where there's a serious concern about Chilul Shabbos. You're right. Everyone would agree. You're right that if there's a serious concern of Chilul Shabbos right now, Avadei Chilul Shabbos is more severe than a Kiyum Mitzvah say of Tzitzis, which is a Kiyumis anyway. But the situation over here is that you're talking about what would happen if I'm passing by a thorn bush and the thing chops it. I mean, how many times does it happen where your tzitzis break and it's mamish possibly because of it?
The question is if it's in your shalom. Because
it's also okay, right?
They're not going out of the tchum. It's not. They won't wear it in the house. They won't wear it outside. If they're in a place that has a suffix.
So it's like mamish being machmer and tam chumras because of the possibility of a lois.
Yeah, but also tchilas is if it's going to be revealed, why are we trying to reveal it? It's going to be revealed.
So it always depends on the neshamas, right? So some people are mamish push for Mashiach, find tchelas. Other people's like, no, let's wait for it to happen. It's not our Messiah, these types of things. But it's all coming from this nakuda of like tzitzis is a mitzvah, which is a mitzvah that it's built into that there's something missing in that there's something more to Yiddishkeit. There's something more to that's what the mitzvah tzitzis.
This whole thing only applies to brisker people, right?
Or the side of everyone that's a brisker.
The real Jews.
Something like that.
Plus the blonde, it's also not dealing with the weak loss of the shop.
Exactly.